Some women are simply born rich, confident, and naturally magnetic to their desires. Let's be clear, this podcast is not for them. However, if you're a soul-driven, visionary, or entrepreneurial woman who's been on a mission to learn how to create a better future bursting to come out of you, welcome to my world. I'm Jo Warwick, and this is Rich, Sexy, and Free. I've dedicated most of my career to helping women get to their core power and unlock the missing pieces for their own unique success. You may already know me as the author of The Big Book of Love. With 30 years experience in psychology, embodiment, manifesting, and energetics, we will be exploring together and with guests the keys to becoming rich, sexy, and free. So if this excites you, don't forget to like and subscribe on your favorite platforms so you can stay up to date with the podcast. I have got a very special guest for you. I've got Cynthia Stant, who is joining us today. And if you don't know Cynthia, she's the queen of sales. Her podcast, The Inner Feminine Beast, is in the top 1%. She wants to help women get paid. She is not about the sleaze. She is all about finding your groove in selling. And oh my gosh, this conversation is so full of juicy insights. We dive deep into big subjects, including bringing God into your business. It was quite surprising recording this podcast, and you may want to listen to it double the time. Just a quick reminder that on Monday, I am hosting the She Deserves Abundance 11-11 Activation Circle. Did you want to step into your abundance frequency and embodiment? This is not a masterclass. This is not a training. This is something very special. So 2 hours of deep diving activation with the 11-11 portal. This sounds interesting. Comes at Rich, Sexy, and Free on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, or simply head over to the website at richsexyandfree.com. Let's dive into the podcast. Cynthia, I am so excited to have you here on Rich, Sexy, and Free. And it's just a delight. And we were just talking before we got started because it's been 300 episodes of your own Inner Feminine Beast podcast.
Jo, it is such an honor for being here. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I mean, we were chatting beforehand. You're like, wait, save it because there you go again. Almost start crying. So my brand is Inner Feminine Beast, and it's really about that version of you that has the courage, the power, the strength, the clarity to just get shit done and to see it through. And I can't believe it, but literally last week was the 300th episode of the Inner Feminine Beast podcast. And the interesting thing about this is that I just had such an evolution of my spirit, of my leadership, of who I am as a woman in business, as a mother, as like a human all around in these past 4 years. And I remember I always wanted a podcast. I remember the first time I heard a podcast, I was like, this is a thing. My husband introduced me. And I was like, I want to do that. And so he's the sweetest guy, and he believed in me. And he bought me a fancy microphone, like this really like complex, like I don't even use it. And I remember I got it for Christmas. I opened it up. I was so excited. And it sat there for over a year in the box. And when people know me now, and even after you listen to this episode, you can be like, really, that girl? All she does is talk. And she like, she's so confident what she says, and she's bold, she's fierce, she's not filtered. But I remember when I plugged it in finally after a year, I sat there and it was a Ricky Bobby moment. I don't know if you know what I mean by that, but there's this Talladega Nights with Will Ferrell. I live with all boys, so I'm watching silly comedies all the time. But there's this part when he first starts being in the spotlight and he's being interviewed by the news anchor, just saying, how was the game and how did it go? And he just started doing really weird stuff with his hands. And they're like, Ricky, you don't have to do that. He's like, well, what do? I don't know what to do. Like, it's awkward. So I just looked at the microphone and I stared at it for like an hour. I remember I was like, what am I going to say? First of all, nobody's here listening. So who actually is going to listen? Like, what value do I have to give? Like, what am I going to do? Now the show has been ranked #1 for women in sales on FeedSpot, which is a platform with over 4 million users in 150 countries. I'm ranked top 1.5% in the world. I've had hundreds of guests, 7, 8-figure women from across the world. The show has brought in multiple 6 figures every single year since I've done it. And I keep it so simple. It's literally just like me and Zoom. Like I don't have like fancy editors. I do it myself. It's just like super easy and fun. And it's been just so mind-blowing. So yeah, when I did that recording, I don't edit my shows. So sometimes I stutter and I'm just like, fuck it, it's fine. I just want people to really hear the truth. But I pushed the play button and I just couldn't hold back. I was like, I just started crying. I was like, I just can't believe that this once was an idea. I once was afraid to do this. If this isn't IFB or inner feminine beast, like, I don't know what is. This is getting it done. This is seeing it through. This is giving yourself permission to be courageous. This is giving yourself permission to just go for it. And look what's possible when you just stay consistent with it. Every day counts. Every day matters. And it was just a moment of complete celebration and just acknowledgement. And look, it's still mind-blowing to me.
It is incredible. It really,
Thank you.
and inspiring for the listeners, of course. It doesn't matter what size your dream is, what your desire is. We all have these spaces where we can sit with the microphone in the cupboard for it. And
Started in my bedroom corner. You know what I mean? Of my little DP house bought when I was 22. Like, it's funny.
it is incredible. I remember when my first book was published, and I had dreamed of having this book. And the thought of writing a book, and I had actually gone to see a shaman, like when I first got my dog, and I was in Glastonbury, and I walked through the doors and he said, "You're going to write 7 books in your lifetime." I hadn't written a single book at that point. I was like, "The fuck?"
Okay, I want my money back.
And yet, 4 years on, I had actually published 2 books. And the first book, and I still remember, I did it in a way that I'd already realized I'd been doing it. I was blogging, I was doing these things because I was showing up. And somehow this first book was birthed, and it wasn't perfect, and it had a million typos, didn't matter how many times it got edited. And yet, hello, that thing when you go, oh God, you would listen to it again and you're like, or you write it again or whatever, and you're like, but getting over that, it's such a process. And to see your development, I think that leads me to a great question. What do you think has changed about you the biggest since starting IFB, the podcast?
I think what has changed the most would be, I come from a sales background. So since I was 22 years old, my very first position outside of college was, I took 13 interviews to get this position. And I became the youngest woman in the world, one of 4 women in the world to have this corporate executive position, where I was a regional state manager for Jim Beam brands here in America. And right from the beginning, my entire job was to forecast, to budget, to help my sales team and train my sales teams to have the tools so that we are guaranteed to hit our sales goals. And when we don't hit our sales goals, be the person that has the plan that's the backup to make sure that we guarantee that we have. So my whole life as a career woman is always in planning and being way ahead of things and just making sure you're constantly getting the to-do list done. Go, 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 do, go, go, go. So it is a muscle. It is something that you achieve, making sure that you constantly are working on being consistent and knowing your profit producing activities and just making sure you achieve your goals. But I realized that skill set helped me to, in the beginning, really take off, which is important because everybody in the beginning needs a lot of that masculine energy of like, get shit done, like go, 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 build the momentum. It's almost like you have a giant boulder and in the beginning, you're pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. You're like, oh my God, this thing is not moving. And you look next to you and there's big boulders and there's a bunch of people and everybody's pushing and everybody's looking at you like, are we crazy? Because this is not going, it's not doing anything. But the more you push, you'll see other people quit. The more you push, you're getting stronger every single time that you're going for it. And eventually your muscle just becomes strong enough that it starts tipping just a little bit. And when that boulder starts tipping, all of a sudden it starts like rocking. And that's the time to just be like, even a little bit more, push a little bit more. And then it starts rolling. And once it starts rolling, it starts picking up speed. But now it's almost like when it's picking up speed, if you keep pushing it, you actually start slowing it down. You kind of just need to let it like coast and go. And it's the different process. So what got you to that first initial milestone isn't necessarily what gets you to the next big milestone. And so what I realized in the beginning was, yes, get shit done, go, 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 do, like, come on, mama, like a little bit more, keep pushing. But really now it's being so much more about being intentional. I teach sales. I love sales. I'm a woman who's obsessed with sales. But for me, why I love sales so much is because sales to me is a spiritual practice. It is literally you serving with your God-given purpose to support others. Like, it doesn't matter if you're the best coach, you're the best consultant, mentor. Well, it's not going to work if you don't have clients to serve and to mentor, right? So like, we have to make sales, and it's a spiritual process. And so what I've realized is it truly is about taking aligned action. And so every woman that comes to me to learn sales, that's what they come for, but they don't realize they're going to get a whole bunch of metaphysics with it. Okay. So my husband, going back to him, I talk about him a lot, but he's a big part of my story. He listens outside my office sometimes. He gives me great feedback. Sometimes he's a big critic too, but I'm open to it. We make each other stronger. And he was making fun of me one day. He's like, babe, I love you, but sometimes you just get too woo with it. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's, well, I heard you talking to your clients about aligned actions plus aligned thoughts plus aligned feelings equals aligned results. And he's like, that's all great and everything, but why aligned? Why aligned? Why can't it just be thoughts plus feelings plus actions equals results? And I said, it does. It does. It does equal results. The thing is, though, a failed podcast is a result, right? Attracting the wrong clients is a result. A failed marriage is a result. Bankruptcy is a result. Illness is a result. And I'm sorry, I'm just not available for any result. I want the aligned result. And you can switch out the word aligned with desired result. So literally, it's a formula. It's not just what you do, because you can do a bunch of things and that's just going to get you a result. But if you want that ultimate result, you have to be the woman who gets that result. And so I'm very intentional about not just doing all the things and getting it done to be like, whoa, gold star, I got my checklist done. Now I'm like, who am I being when I'm doing these things? And I stop and ask myself consistently, who am I? Who do I want to be? What's the difference? And what am I choosing to do about it? Because everything I do, I'm the cause that creates the effect. I go first and everything responds. So am I putting out there exactly what I want? Because nothing happens to me. It all happens for me, by me. It is not a coincidence. I have control over this. So I'm really just super intentional. And that's the difference between where I started, just like, get it done, have the courage to do it, versus now really developing a brand and really providing high level value, really making sure that the guests that come on are being highlighted and really supporting my audience. Along with exactly how I run my business, it's the same thing. Everything is just much more intentional at this stage. So yeah, that's definitely a big difference maker.
I love that.
But yeah, in the beginning, just do it. Just do it. Imperfection, it's real. Just get the shit done. Just start it. And like, everybody like is so afraid to start. You are going to fuck up. You are going to make a ton of mistakes. If you did it, I'd be concerned for you. What happens is you learn from those mistakes. And every day you're just like, okay, what worked? What didn't? And what am I going to do differently? Pivot. But you're never going to know if you don't just get started, right? And then eventually it becomes a lot easier.
I always describe it like surfing because I'm a surfer, and I always think that's such a great analogy. The way that you said about the boulder, I describe it often about learning to surf. And when you learn to surf, you're out on your board, but you're in the whitewash. You're just like paddling around, being smacked around, but you got in the water. That's the first step. You got to get in the water. If you don't do that, you're not going to get anywhere. But then you have to get the confidence to paddle out back. Once you get over the break, which is what you're talking about, that push, it's like you get over the break and it's like, oh, well, actually, it's much easier. The waves are cleaner. You're already in the right space. And then you have to know intentionally to feel, and that's how I always describe it, about the feeling, the difference, that soul alignment of when you feel the waves, that, you can see them, but you feel when they start to come, and it's taking that action to then paddle. Because you're never going to catch a wave if you don't paddle. You're never going to get anywhere. Once you're up on the board, it's all about riding. And it is that different phase. It's, again, not the same as being on your benny. It's a different phase, isn't it? It's like, I got to get up. But to get to that point, you have to fall off your board. So really tough. It's gnarls.
I'm a big sports girl. I was an athlete forever. And it's just like that saying, you have to get in the game. And once you get in the game, the thing is, think about it. Any sport, any game, you can't win playing defense. Like, you can keep other people from scoring, but then that just means, again, you're the cause that creates the effect. Or if you're just playing defense, you're the effect to somebody else's cause. I really do believe we are all the directors of our life. Like, we write the script, we hire the actors, we fire the actors. Like, this is our movie. And so you have to play offense. And that does mean you might strike out. That does mean you might get bloody knees, but it's a game and it's so worth living. And there's nothing else I'd rather do. And that's how you have to look at it.
I think that leads us on to such a good question. What you thought was a failure, what you maybe a program or a limiting belief at some point would have, that's a failure. But now where you are, now you've moved on, now you're at the level that you're at. What is something that you think is like actually been my biggest success?
That's good. I mean, I've had a lot of failures. I'm a big Disney fan. I talk about Disney a lot. And I'm grateful that Star Wars now falls under the Disney category because my boys now love Disney and going to Disney World. Master Yoda, who always says, do or do not, there is no try. But he also says, failure is your biggest teacher. And he's right. I'm somebody who years ago, I used to say one hand, but now we're officially on six fingers. 6 years ago, I went through a bankruptcy. I'm literally a woman who was on food stamps. I had $200 in my pocket and 2 children. And 2 years later, I was a self-made multimillionaire, right? A lot can change. And I think what happens is when you're playing...
Let's just slow that down for a second, Cynthia.
Kind of crazy, right?
Like that. Do you want to say that again? Just say that again. In 6 years, in those 2 years that changed, say it again, please, so that people can really hear that.
Within 2 years of having absolutely nothing, financially speaking, my husband and I, through my business and then through our real estate portfolio, we've created multiple millions. We're talking tens of millions at this point now. And it's happened quickly. The thing is, it's because when you play defense, and if you're somebody who really wants to win, but you're just playing defense again and again and again and again, you just have this breaking point. And you always hear people say it, and it sounds cliche, but like there's this part where you're just like, fuck it. Like I am so sick and tired of this feeling, and you just decide. And one of my favorite quotes ever, and it really helped me, was by Michael Bernard Beckwith, Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith. I think the person actually was manifested randomly, which was so beautiful, out of the blue, of course. But anyway, he says, pain pushes until vision pulls. And when you are somebody who is really going for it and you want to play offense, you fall again and again and again and again. And eventually you get used to the falling and it's just part of the game. It just becomes part of the game. But when you're falling, it hurts. And you're just like, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. And I think going through a bankruptcy and then also finding a dream job that I ended up getting fired from, which I don't even know why, but it all led me to starting my company. It all gave me the right tools to be here. And then I think what happens is that when I started and I carried into my corporate skill set, brought it into my business, a lot of people forget just because you're newer online does not mean you're a newbie. Okay, like I'm a newbie. My company just turned 4 years, right? Like we're all newbies. Suddenly, I joke around, that means I'm in 3rd grade if you want to count kindergarten. Like we're all new. But I also remembered who I was as this corporate executive saleswoman, as a business consultant, as somebody who went to college and had a degree in marketing with a minor in advertising. I thought about my corporate training. I thought about all the mentoring and coaching that I had. I thought of every book that I read. You have to own your expertise. And so that's exactly what I did when I first started. When I first started, people always said, how did you do it? I created multiple 6 figures in income within less than 6 months of losing my job and starting from scratch. People said, how did you do it? Again, I showed up intentionally. I made sure every day I was working like it was a job. And at the same time, like I was really being a woman already as a 7-figure woman. I went to people, I had conversations, like I owned it, I claimed it. I was like, I knew I'm here to change lives and I'm going to focus on doing that. So right away, my business took off like crazy, which is the dream. But what happens is when you stick with anything long enough, universal law, the tides go out, the tides come in. The seasons, they change. As I said, I'm in real estate. I'm constantly studying the market. The market's a bear, the market's a bull. It's a buyer's market, it's a seller's market. You have to constantly be studying. And when you do anything long enough, it's not just the up and up and up. There's going to be dips. Now, my goal for anybody is not to have everything crush and crumble and then rise back up. It's to have little dips as you continue to incline. But I did have a dip. And it's interesting when we have dips or things that were working well don't work well anymore. One big thing that I learned is if something is really working, you don't have to tear it down to create something completely new. Please don't do that. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And if it works, don't stop it. Okay. So that's something that I did. And I revamped something completely new. And so much shifted in that. And I'm so grateful because while it was happening, I was like, oh my God, did I just throw away everything that was great? And did I just start something that's not? Am I losing it all? But if you just keep with it, that dip, the pendulum will swing back, you start moving back up. And through that process of not just going up and up and up, but having that dip, I made a lot of mistakes that helped me ultimately to be a better mentor for the people that I coach. I know for a fact that I'm a great mentor. You know why? Because I don't only suggest, I don't tell you, I suggest what you could do. I also suggest what not to do. Why? Because I've already made those mistakes. So by making these mistakes and making it not be like, oh God, I'm a failure, but saying, oh, this was a great teaching aspect. I am now so much better from this. And the reason why we hire coaches, consultants, mentors is because we save so much time, we save so much money, and we learn from that. And ultimately, this experience helped me to create programs and to create ways to support so many other people who may be going through it because I'm steps ahead. So it's like, is it good or is it bad? It's neither. It's what I decide it is, And so that's how you have to look at it. But when you're going through it, it feels like your world is crumbling. But nobody can make you think anything else. You have to just focus on moving forward. And you will ultimately keep that boulder moving and get it back speeding again. It's happened to all of us. It's not just rainbows, butterflies, and Prince Charmings and constant 10K days. Those are great. They do happen, but it's who are you being during the downswing to actually create the momentum that will speed it back up to the other way.
It's how you approach it. And I think when I was riding, that mindset when you're first starting is, oh my God, I've fallen off the horse. Oh my God, it hurts. And in riding, funnily enough, falling off was a great teacher because it physically hurts. And I've had some serious breaks. I found out 2 years ago, I broke my neck. I didn't even know. It was like, for the grace of God. But actually, when you realize, like in business, it doesn't hurt. It's a mindset. It's how you approach those moments that it isn't going to be life or death. You are not going to die from falling out the road. You're not going to die from not having any money. Even that is a program within us. The biggest shift for me was the amazing woman who started Spanx. And for the life of me, I can't remember her name at this moment. When she was growing up, her father used to ask her and her siblings, never what have you succeeded at? It was, what have you failed at this week?
Yeah.
I wanted to encourage that it was nothing to be ashamed of or bad or anything like that. And it's so right, isn't it? You can't mentor, you can't guide anybody if you haven't fucked up. And
I know.
You teach anybody that. Or when you're learning to walk, you don't go, oh God, I shouldn't fall over.
Right.
Kids, they're like, fall over, smack, bang, fall over, and they learn to walk. And we all succeeded at that. Now walk. Well done. You learned to do it. So I love that. I love what you're saying.
Cool. No, but it's true. Like, I love good quotes. I don't have it perfectly memorized, but Thomas Edison, he created the light bulb, right? He failed like 10,000 times before he got it. Well, I didn't fail, just 10,000 times didn't get it right yet. But thank goodness he did it again because boom, now it's here. Or when it comes to basketball, it's Michael Jordan. Like little kids are like, I want to be like Mike. And he says all the time, there's over 300 times that I like missed the game winning shot. There's so many times that literally the game crumbled because I messed up. And I did it again and again and again. I failed again and again. It's because I failed so many times is why I'm successful. And I just have to remind myself that if you're truly going to be that person that is the leader, if you're truly that person who wants to live the life that other people are never going to get to live, you have to be willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do. And at any point, at your own pace. But I think it's a part of it. And like you said, I mean, whether you call it God, source, universe, it's funny, that actually shifted for me. I'm a God girl. But now I always say, God won't give me anything that I can't handle. And so, did you die? No, I didn't die. And I'm still here. And this isn't that bad. Like, I chose this life.
I'd love to dive down that actually with you, because I know for myself, I went through a whole journey of calling it different things. It started as God, and then it was like, oh no, I have too much energy around that feels wrong. And then it moved to being lots of things. And I interchange and generally call it love. But I found myself coming back to using God. Yeah. I don't want to say God days, but it's that essence, whatever we name it, how it plays out in this element of your business. So I would love to hear where you think that part, that divine part of you, the divine within you and without of you, the God within you and without of you, how that plays out in your business and your life.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting because before as an entrepreneur, it was universe for me and now it is God. But somebody who really understands metaphysics, this is a whole conversation itself. In my mind, that the universe is actually God's mind, right? But that's one of those things. I went to Catholic high school and I just remember I got in trouble all the time. I was fascinated with theology and it was one of the classes that I got an A in all the time, but I was also kicked out of it 4 times while in school. And I got kicked out for just asking questions. Like I thought they were just very simple, like I'm curious questions. And you're supposed to listen. You're not supposed to ask questions. It's interesting. A lot of my success, and honestly, I've trained salespeople, thousands of them. I can always tell who's going to be the most successful and which one most quickly based off the questions that they ask. Because when you ask, you shall receive.
Yeah.
And so I believe in something bigger, but I'm figuring out myself first. Like, I don't have time to think of something outside of me. That's where it was in the beginning. And so I didn't really resonate too much with God, or at least what I was being taught. And then I remember life was starting to get a lot better. I became a young mother. I was happily married. We were starting to figure out what we wanted to do for careers. And I just remember a piece of me missing. I remember I was by myself and I turned up at the sky and I was like, God, I think that's what I should call you. I was like, look, I don't know anything about you and I want to. I was like, I really want to build a relationship, but I don't even know how to talk to you. I don't know how this is supposed to work. But please know, like, I'm putting it out there that I'm really open to building this. All of a sudden, I just got this booming voice in my head. It was my own voice. It didn't sound anything different. It wasn't like God was talking to me, but it just is like, you know how you talk right now? That's how you hear. It just sounds like you're thinking of your like to-do list today or what you have to buy for shopping list. I just heard it in my head. And so I didn't think anything of it, but it perfectly said, on your 27th birthday, you will know. And I was just like, oh, okay. And then I was like, wait, whoa, what's that, right? But nothing really happened. And it was interesting. On my 27th birthday, this is still when I'm a corporate woman. I didn't start my company. I was looking on Zillow. That's like what I do for fun. I don't really scroll on social media when I'm off because I like my whole life is on it. But I like Zillow, which is a app to look up real estate. And I remember I was just like going like this, swirling on the screen. And sometimes there's little landmarks like the grocery store or Dunkin' Donuts. And all of a sudden there's this little building that was labeled the College of Metaphysical Studies. And I went by it and then I was like, wait, what is that? And I remember my youngest son, who just turned 9, was like 3 weeks old. Like, he was really young. And maybe like he's 2 months. I got to do the math. But anyway, he's very young. He's in a carrier. I picked him up in the carrier and I drove to this building and I walked in and it was almost like Hogwarts. Like, I was like, what is this place? And they were so welcoming and so nice. They were like, hi, what are you doing here? And I was like, honestly, like, I have no idea. My first mentor ever. And she said to me, so how much do you meditate? How often? And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, no one has time for that. And then I was like, wait, I'm home with my baby right now. Like, I have a lot of time. Like, I was so used to delegating and flying here and being there and going to this party and then this meeting, blah, 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 all the things. And so she helped me to meditate for the first time. And I know it's not like this for everybody. Everybody's story is different. But I truly believe that meditation is to your soul what food and water is to your body. And let's just say I was thirsty, right? And first time I meditated, like, I went somewhere and I just found like this big release and I just found so much peace and like I was floating amongst the stars. Like, I was just being like fulfilled. I don't know. I came back and I was like, yup, this is what's in this thing. I'm going to keep doing this. And I went home, was so excited to tell my husband. He took me out to dinner that night because we were celebrating my 27th birthday. And I didn't even put the pieces together. Then all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is what that voice told me. He's like, the voice? I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'll explain later. So since then, I mean, it hasn't been 100% perfect, but it literally is like every single day. I mean, maybe skip 1 or 2 here, but 20 minutes a day, I meditate. And I just sit there and I allow myself to be. And I just give thanks for this life. And I accept downloads. I accept unconditional love. And I just stop forcing and doing and just be. And it has changed everything for me. So when I started my business, I actually didn't start coaching sales. When I was fired from my previous corporate position, I had to not compete. So I couldn't even teach sales and business, which is like the thing I love. So I started teaching spirituality, mindset, meditation, manifestation, metaphysics, the 4 M's. And it was really cool because that's what created multiple 6 figures in less than 6 months. So I was helping so many women with what they really needed help with. But at the same time, it really did build my authority and credibility because people were like, oh, you actually just showed that you can actually sell something intangible just as well as you can sell business and money. They're like, now we're really intrigued. So it actually helped my sales when it was time to start that. But when I first started, I would say universe all the time. And I realized that I actually was doing that to please more people. I didn't want to offend anybody with the word God. Because I think some people had that feeling that I used to have. But I realized when you're an entrepreneur, it's very lonely. I don't have a team of advisors. I don't have a full staff. And even if you do, you're the person at the very top of the organizational chart. Like, you're by yourself. And so I didn't want to be by myself. And so I realized right away I was bringing some salesperson tactics and mindsets into my business. And I was like, no. I'm not a salesperson. I am the entrepreneur. I am the CEO. And I need my right hand. I need my COO. So I invited God to be my business partner. And I said, you're going to take the night shift. We're going to have like time together. We're going to talk about what needs to come to me and through me to impact your people. And the more that I serve, the more that I give, and the more that I'm intentional about doing that, my goodness, I'm allowed to receive. And that's what's happened. So it really has shifted more into God. And I started saying it, and it just felt so much better. It felt so much more truthful. And the secret about sales is that in order to earn money, you have to earn trust. And so the more real, transparent, and authentic to yourself, the more people can feel that, the more that they trust you. And I couldn't believe when I started saying God, the amount of people coming into my world saying yes. And amount of people saying, I love how you bring God into business. And I'm like, but business is God. It's spiritual. It shifted everything for me. And yeah, it really is just a word. It is just a word. But to me, like my God and how we have a relationship together, which isn't necessarily church and isn't necessarily what other people do for rituals, but it's just my God, you know? And so it's brought so much peace and support. That's a huge thing that's helped me. It's helped me to feel like I can surrender, I can be supported, and that I don't have to do it all by myself. Cynthia Stant can only carry so much. It's with the help of the divine that I've gotten to the levels that I'm at, for sure.
I love that. And it's so poignant. Although I'm a divine teacher, I mean, I can see it to energy, and yet I've hidden God in the back cupboard many a time. So the fact this is the second time I've actually brought that conversation into this, I'm evolving.
There's something I want to share with you, because the way that you're feeling, I feel like a lot of people are feeling, and I certainly did too. I can make fun of myself, and I have a little story I want to share. Let me see if I can find it. This here is my first program and all the worksheets that came with it. It doesn't exist anymore, right? And again, is that a failure? No, this helped me to get to where I needed to be until I evolved into something else. But the cover of these worksheets, it's a little hard to see, but I'm wearing a pink blazer. And I'm just doing like if they don't watch this on YouTube, just you look so formal. As you say, it's like pink blazer, very formal, not how you want to do. I know. And that's because I was being something that I was taught was successful. I was conditioned, and I thought that's what people would want from me. That if I came up as this image, that then I would earn trust, or I'd be more credible or have authority. And I just realized like it wasn't working, because I was doing what other people were doing and it wasn't myself. And honestly, I always tell people I will never wear a blazer again. And I'm so mad because now they're back and they're extremely fashionable. Some of them are glittery, but I firstly say that just because I no longer am in the corporate world, especially again, where I was surrounded by men wearing suits. I constantly couldn't have bright fingernails or glitter. Now I'm constantly the longest ones covered in glitter. And I'm very unfiltered. So this is what I've learned. I remember I've invested a lot with mentors. My very first one since I started my company wasn't a business one, because business, like metaphysics is you, business is who I be. Like I live, breathe, eat sales. It's no one taught me. It's just like what I know to do. Again, 22, I got this big girl position. It doesn't even make sense. It's just what comes so natural to me. But I hired somebody to help me with my feminine aspects, because I was very masculine. There I was wearing a suit, right? There I was, go, 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 do, do, do. And I knew I didn't want to bring those habits into my business. And so I really think about the one thing that she said, and sometimes, like, again, she helped me with many things, but you know, when your mentor just is like that one thing, that little gold nugget, and you're like, oh, that was worth the $50 investment. Like, that was it. She said, and very nonchalantly, I don't even think she even like realized she was saying it. She said, Cynthia, your brand is a promised experience. Oops. And I remember, right? Like, so good. And I still use that, but I always remind I got from my first mentor. And so I remember I was like going for a run. I was like, what does that mean? A promised experience, a promised experience. And so again, I'm a big Disney fan. I bring it back to Disney. And you should see my office. I have like the castle over there. I have the Enchanted Rose, Beauty and the Beast. Like people just buy me stuff all the time because they know I like Disney. I was thinking about what is my favorite brand? And I was like, oh, well, Disney. I said, well, why is it my favorite brand? And how is it a promised experience? And all of a sudden it was just like I totally understood it. So I buy the annual passes for my family. And that was something that was on my vision board forever, right? And now it's something that we just do. And every time we go, I joke around, but you don't just go and stay at the normal hotels. You want to stay at the Disney hotel. They would have breakfast with Mickey. And if my husband had any idea how much I put into these vacations that we do, he would go crazy. But the thing is, why am I willing to do that? It's because every single time I go, the gardens are just so pristine. My 12-year-old, he says, Mommy, this landscaping is like world renowned. I'm like, damn right it is. Like, it's so good, right? And every time we go, like, people are just smiling and the rides are always just so fantastic. And there's always a new show. And if the bathrooms are like, they're so clean and you just feel everything is nice and your food is consistent. I realize it's a promise experience. The staff, they always wave. And what do they always say? They say, have a magical day. And damn it, I do. Never, ever, ever have I walked into the park where they wave and say, have a mediocre day. They don't. And so I was like, oh, I'm willing to invest this much money because I know every time I go, it's going to be magical. Always, every time. And so I thought about, what does that mean for me? And to be honest, there's no right, there's no wrong, but this is how I feel. I feel like a lot of times women start their business doing all the wrong things because they're taught to, right? They hire help and they're taught how to make a shiny website, a glittery post. They pay thousands of dollars for copy and someone making their logo and somebody who is going to do their expensive photo shoot. But like, you don't even know who you are yet as an entrepreneur. And I don't think we necessarily tell people who we are. What happens is the feedback from our clients is how we kind of figured that out, because your brand isn't who you say you are. Your brand is what other people feel about you. And so when I have my brand, Inner Feminine Beast, that wasn't like something I came up with. It wasn't, oh, this is a cute name. I think it's a cool name. But what it is was so many of my clients were like, damn, Cynthia, like you're so loving and nurturing and just feminine. But at the same time, sometimes you like shake me with love and you kick my ass and like just help me to get shit done. Like you're not just kissing my boo-boos. You're like telling me to get my ass up and go. And like, I just love it. You're so woo and intuitive, but you're so masculine and beast. I'm just like, oh my God, my brand is Feminine Beast. And here's why it works really well. And this is where so many sales came in. And this is where the freedom came in. This is where the fun came in, is when you really own and claim who you are and just be who you are and be that well. Like that's it. Because you don't have to think. Like I'm so unfiltered. Sometimes I say shit. I'm like, oh, that's how I feel. Right? Like, and it's, if you love it, you love me. And if you don't, that's okay. We're not meant to be together. But like when you speak to everybody, you try to please everybody, you lose everybody. And so again, saying God, that might have turned a lot of people off. And that was not my intention. It was just me being real. But also it really connected to certain people and it worked. So I am who I am with you right now, as I am with my clients, as I am with my children, with my mom, my friends, my husband. Like I'm never not being me. And therefore I never have to pretend or worry if I'm not saying the right thing or wrong thing. And it earns trust. Being authentic is what earns trust. And that's how you earn money. And so, yeah, I think about, are you being you all the time consistently? If you're thinking, like you were saying earlier, going back to it, like I was hiding that part of me. Like I was too afraid. Like I was so afraid to tell people that I was fired. I thought like that would lose my credibility. Like, and some people still advise me, Cynthia, that makes you sound like you were a wild child and people shouldn't hire you because of that. I'm like, no, a lot of people were fired and they need to hear that there's life after this. And if something bad like that happens, perhaps it's because it was meant to be. Like you're supposed to be your own boss, right? I also had this story where when I met my husband, we were only dating for a few months when we found out we were having a baby. And at the same time, I decided to get this big girl job and things took off. And I remember like, what is the world going to think when I share that that was my story and that, you know, after 3 months of dating, we had a baby and got married. And like, a lot of my friends didn't know that. Like, but when I started sharing it in my story, and it's not making your mess your thing, it's just like being real. Like not one person was like, oh my God, that happened to you? Like you're terrible. It was like this story I told myself and it made it people so much more relatable. They're like, oh, that happened to me. And I love how basically you just came from nothing and made everything you wanted to. So it's really interesting, but you just have to be yourself, be real and be intentional with how you're putting it out there. But it's being consistent in who you are. That changes everything.
Absolutely. There was something I just wanted to pin out from what you said about the investing in coaches. I think I worked out this year, I think I spent about £1 million on training, coaches, education. I'm a psychotherapist by trade, so I spent a fortune on supervision and therapy, all of that as well. I was thinking about it. I would say that probably 70% of that time and that energy was spent by people telling me I was wrong. But so many people out there in the market make their money by highlighting that you are wrong and bad. That because things aren't working the way that they think they should, so that they highlight the bad points, make you feel bad, and then you invest in them. So what I would love to know, what approach do you take differently?
So that's something to really think about right now, too. What's cool about our coaching industry is that it's not as new as it used to be. So going back to what we said in the beginning, just like how your business is going to have, once it's been out there long enough, it's going to have cycles. Just like how the industry, when it comes to real estate, we're constantly studying the trends. Our beautiful coaching industry now has been around and long enough where it's not super new. Most people have had multiple coaches. At the same time, we're starting to experience trends. We're being able to see how the market is evolving and shifting. And so one big thing that's really happening right now is, especially after 2020, everybody converted online. And so those who were already set up quite successfully, they were like the first gurus that everyone was like, oh my God, I'm brand new. I don't know what to do. You're semi-established. Let me just put my money towards you because you've already done something that I need to achieve. And it did work. So in the beginning, there were some really big names, very particular systems that worked for half the people and not half the other. And then what happens is people keep investing. So I did this the other day. I had quite a few women on a Zoom with me, and I asked every single person on there, I said, how many coaches have you had since 2020? And the least amount was 3. And some of them were up to 10 something. And I'm right along there with you. I don't think it's a million, but it's definitely hundreds of thousands that I've invested personally. And so the thing is, why? What's going on? Well, we first got on just, again, to learn how to do this, but then we realized we needed support. Being an entrepreneur can be lonely, and there's people out there who have better skill sets in certain areas that we need to improve on. But of course, it's the cost of doing business. You're going to get help. But sometimes it's absolutely great. We have great experiences. And that's why, of course, we keep investing. Sometimes we don't have the best experiences. But at the same time, it's not like a bad thing. Again, is it good or is it bad? I've learned a lot of what not to do from those coaches that actually helped me to be better at what I do as well. But now the thing is, what we have to understand is so many people have invested and they've now had good and bad experiences. This is a very good thing for those of us like you, myself, your listeners who are experts, who are really in this to win this, who are really here to support people, because it's going to help weed out. The buyer's behavior right now is there's a lot of discernment. It's not just link in bio. That's not going to work anymore. It's not just like, here, click and buy. And that does happen, especially with low ticket offers, things of that sort. But your high ticket, the things that are really going to bring in your income, it's more about earning trust. People have questions. They want to feel supported. People want to see that it's just as shiny on the inside as it is on the outside. It's really important that we are doing what we can to not just talk about how great we are, but show our clients results and how great we can be for them. And so there's a lot of discernment, and we just have to be mindful of that. Right now, when it comes to what I've done, I'm very intentional about using the word consultant. So am I a coach? Yeah. Am I a mentor? Absolutely. But I specifically use the word consultant because ultimately you are the CEO of your business. Now, what I've been able to do because of my experience, and even since starting my company, I've literally helped hundreds of entrepreneurs to be able to make sales. Now, even back when I was a saleswoman, I was working for online business consultant. And for me to be the top salesperson, I had to learn how systems and coaching would work for every single type of business, whether you were a psychic or an attorney, whether you were a doctor or you were a yoga instructor, right? I had to study your business to see how this would work for you. And so because of that, what's really cool is I like to think of myself as somebody who gives you a smorgasbord, like a whole buffet. So when you come to me, I'm not like, here's your system, because that's where you're going to have issues. When you have a system, it's going to work for half the people, but not the other. And if your clients are not getting results, that's an issue, because your client's results is your reputation. Like literally your client success is your success. That's where you get validation, which creates demand, which is how you get referrals, how you get testimonials. And that's why you're doing it in the first place, for results. So instead of offering a system, what I've done is I really compiled all the different types of systems. So when you come to me, I'm like, hey, being an intuitive woman and really getting to know you and where you're at and what you desire, not just in your income, but in your lifestyle, I really suggest that we look into these type of strategies. Now, you're the boss. I will recommend that we can look at these as well, but I don't think these are the best fit. Ultimately, though, it is your choice. And I remind people all the time, I'm here to empower you. And so every woman in my program has a different offer. They have different titles. We have every range you can think of. I don't just help business coaches. There's everything in between, and they're all selling in different ways. Some women are focused on luxury. Some are doing completely scalable. And it's because as a consultant, I'm here to support you in deciding what fits best for you. So we're not finding a system, we're finding your system. And that makes all the difference. A lot of times women come to me and they have this idea of what they think they're supposed to do. And it's because they saw somebody else do it. It resonated with them. They liked it. And now they're trying to copy and repeat. And that's not the authentic version of you. So I feel like being a savvy businesswoman and being very intuitive, I'm constantly pulling out the essence of people's soul and helping them to price, package, and promote it. And they're like, we get off these first sessions and they're just crying. They're like, no one has ever seen me like this. I didn't see me like this. I didn't even know it was there. And that's the biggest error that I think a lot of newer people make, is because your gift, you don't ever see as your gift because it comes so natural to you. I remember when I started doing this online, people were like, oh my God, how did you sell like this? I'm buying and I just want to know, what did you do to me? What kind of spell was that? What was this? Because I want to learn how to do that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I just opened my mouth. And then I'm like, oh, if you can take your gift that you have to really think about, because it's what's so natural for you. You don't think oh, people actually want to learn this, because you're like, I don't even think about doing it. Everybody can do this, right? It's that easy, isn't it? But it's not. And so you can simplify, and if you can put into processes, blueprints, steps, what you do, and support people to do it as well, but also be able to customize it to have it feel right for them, there's your 7-figure business. Boom. That's how that works. And sometimes this happens a lot where women come to me and they're having 30K months and they are doing really well, but they're plateauing. And the reason they're plateauing is because they've been doing something that they created that worked well, but it's not the full embodiment of who they are. And very often, I'm not going to, again, don't ever stop doing something that's working well. Keep running that while we create this new vision. I'll tell a quick story, but this is one of the best examples because we were just in tears. It was such an amazing experience together. She came to me, joined the program, and she wanted to continue coaching as far as helping busy moms to meal prep and to be organized and to know different recipes and how to literally use different Tupperware to plan the week out. And then when you have a one-on-one with me, I never am like, okay, so what are we talking about today? I have you fill out surveys and questionnaires so that you come prepared and are thinking big picture, but I also come with a million ideas. Remember, again, this is what I suggest, this is what I don't suggest. Where do you want to play? And so she submitted her survey, and she gave me 10 pages of copy and just her brain dumping all these ideas. And I read every word. Now, you don't have to do that. I thought it was brilliant that she did. But as I was reading this, I found out that she is legally blind. So much so that she uses a cane. And I'm like, wow. And you wrote 10 pages of this? And it was written so beautifully. And she talked about how she loves traveling around the world and she's been able to do it by herself. In fact, I met her years ago when I spoke at a conference in Nashville, and she was there. She went there by herself. And I'm just like, what are we doing talking about Tupperware? Woman, no pun intended, but I don't think you can see what I see, right? And I was like, you are going to empower so many people around the world who are visually impaired to not look at it like it's a crutch, but it truly can be a superpower. And she just started crying because she's like, this is the part of me I always wanted to hide. I don't want people to know that I had this disability. And I was like, no, that is your superpower. And all of a sudden we just saw the vision. She's now speaking on stages. Oh my God. She now is starting her podcast. She's now enrolling clients. And that's what I live for, right? That's what it's all about. And of course, her business is taking off compared to where it was because it's in alignment with who she is. And sometimes we just need somebody to see that for us. And once we do, it all clicks and the momentum starts building. That's what always happens is I'm awake again. I'm alive. This is what I want to do. And now it's clear. So yeah, that's how that works.
It's such a perfect story for us to come to the end because it's everything we've talked about throughout today, which is about bringing those hidden parts of you to the forefront. Because that's actually where your power is. That's where your passion is as well. Because once you're aligned with that, it's the passion that lights up inside of you. And as we started today, it was about you hiding your microphone and your Yeah, and now we're celebrating 300 episodes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cynthia, I know that we could talk and talk so
I know.
that great podcast. I would love to have you on again at another point. I know that there's so much juicy stuff in this that people will get so much from it. Yeah, it's just been an absolute honor. Thank you so much for your time. It's just been delighted.
It was a pleasure. And thank you for everybody for listening. Honestly, Jo, you are so fantastic. Like you said, we could talk all day. So I just appreciate you so much for this opportunity. It really means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. And you'll be able to find, of course, all of the links in the show notes, everywhere in your front. You better track down Cynthia. But even if you just can't find it there, all you have to do is put Cynthia Stant into Facebook, into Instagram. You will find her. The inner feminine beast.
Oh, yeah. It's everywhere you can listen to us. Yeah.
It's been great to connect with you today. If you want to find out more about how I can help you personally, or check out any of my books, products, or coaching packages, just simply go ahead and visit richsexyandfree.com. And I look forward to seeing you next week on the podcast.